I have come to walking art by an indirect route. First, I walked the perimeter of the city where I live. And that led to my collecting other writers' stories about walking in an anthology. And that led, a year ago, to an invitation to be a resident artist and walk in a place called Shillong in India's Western Ghats, a very ancient volcanic range that runs from north to south through the subcontinent, formed in the late Jurassic and early Cretaceous period when India separated from the African continent. The Western Ghats are one of the most biodiverse spots on the planet and include many endemic species of flora and fauna, that is, found nowhere else. It is a fragile ecosystem threatened by development pressures and intensive farming. The Shillong Institute and Retreat was founded to preserve this fragile ecosystem, which now encompasses a 3,500-acre sanctuary of once unprotected and despoiled forest land, reforested and planted with thousands of native species over the past 25 years. They have dedicated expertise and resources to conserving and regenerating fragile landscapes and habitats like these. Their mission and motto is conserve, heal, sustain. Arriving as a stranger, a foreigner, in a country I had never been before, and welcomed with exceptional hospitality, I was never so aware of being a guest. What does it mean to be a guest? A good guest? What are a guest's responsibilities? And with this sense of my being a guest, ignorant in mind, I set out on steps of first acquaintance. Using the map that the eco resort provided, I started from my own little residence and followed the paved paths of the retreat complex to see where each line ended. I found that each path in this landscaped and curated environment led to its own surprise and magic. Some sparked deep-seated memories of my own origins. These were liminal spaces, offering transition from one kind of experience to another. Some passages to wildness, some where civilization, the outside world, intruded, but was also included, a part of the story this landscape had to tell. I gave these points whimsical names on the map as if they were my own discoveries. Discovering these points of transition led me to walk throughout Shillong and my time there attuned to boundaries and edges, some natural, others man-made, and question the landscape in those terms. What purpose does a boundary serve? Does it divide, defend, protect, clarify? Are boundaries always barricades? Where does one experience end and another begin? I pose similar questions about gateways and portals. These initial explorations, solo and independent, may have led to mysteries and speculation, but those can also be an imposition of my own experience and my own imagination. To come to understand and fully experience this place, I needed guides. These were trained naturalists on the eco retreat staff, forest guards employed by Shillong who lived in the village and were valued for their intergenerational indigenous knowledge of the forest and mountains, and a team of ecologists from Oikos who were completing their multi-year survey of the site. Each brought their own expertise, familiarity, and intimacy to walking through this place. On my very first walk into the forest, my naturalist guide, Prahlad, said this, inviting me to touch, smell, and listen as we walked. All these guides opened up the intricate micro-worlds of the forest, such as wasps in figs, termites in trees, the water beetles, tiny fish, lichen, and algae that thrived in the nulla or stream, their presence indicators of the water's health. All the different species of ants and their distinctive abodes, and plants, many of them fruit-bearing. Here are mango and jamun, now cultivated on Shillem slopes, part of the larger plan for restoration that includes creating a sustainable economy for the villagers. Every walk, I brought treasures from the forest back with me to touch, smell, and contemplate. Guides taught me how to read signs of the other beings who lived in and moved through the mountains, mostly unseen. Scratches on trees where a leopard had sharpened its claws, or where deer or wild bison had rubbed their antlers and horns. The high branches were the giant squirrel nests, and the low chambers where riparian crabs sleep until monsoon season raises the stream bed. The troughs where packs of boars dig to feast on tree roots, and the portals where funnel spiders trap their prey. There are also traces of human interaction, including the marking and honoring of sacred spaces. Dabs of orange paint on rocks and boulders, I learned, signify the presence of a deity. As in this small temple where villagers leave offerings to protect their cattle from the leopard who prowls these hills. At the heart of the jungle lies a sacred grove where the ancient ficus trees have never been cut down, protected because a god walked through here centuries ago, his passage memorialized in this carving. All these small, even micro revelations interwove with a widening, deepening perspective. Climbing high, I saw how this landscape connected to the rolling hills beyond the property boundaries of Shillem. And I also learned from guides that I was here at a particular moment in time, the start of the dry season. A few months later, I might not recognize these hills. Vivid green, the streams overflowing, and lines of waterfalls spilling down the face of the mountains. I supplemented the intense guided treks with more wayward forays within the confines of the eco retreat. I explored random side paths that led to scruffier places, which often exposed the infrastructure, not designed to be seen, but essential to supporting the human community. And, in the case of the cell phone tower, a line of connection to the rest of the world. And I thought of what Catalan walking artist Clara Gari once said, that these are worthy places too, and fascinating in part for their hiddenness and for their surprising moments of accidental artfulness and beauty. These poking around walks struck me as a very specific mode of walking and took me back to being a kid when curiosity led me to discovery and possibly into trouble. What to call this way of walking? I decided on Goldilocks walks. Goldilocks, of course, being a problematic character, arrogant, entitled, Aryan, or Anglo white girl, barging into a place she doesn't belong and then objecting that things don't suit her. In these walks, I was ironically aware of her and my air of privilege and entitlement. But I also want to give her some credit. She's interested in everything, and she's brave. Maybe she enters the Three Bears house because she wants to belong somewhere, but gets frightened when nature proves harsh and unsympathetic, which we could say is the human dilemma in the natural world. Wildness has the last word. Is 2 weeks as a guest enough to move from ignorance to intimacy? I have three anecdotes as evidence. The first is about Carvey. On my first nature walk with Prahlad, he showed me a bush and told me its name. Known as the hero of the Western Ghats, a plant valued for its strength and flexibility. Deeply rooted, it provides a handhold up and down steep slopes. It flowers every 7 years. It had flowered that fall, I was told, and leaves fragrant, soft, and sticky cones, which my guide invited me to touch. I came to know it too as a portal, arch-shaded glades creating passageways from meadow to forest. I grabbed it on my second day hike to keep from sliding down a steep scree slope. And then, on a Goldilocks walk, I poked behind a bamboo hedge and stepped into an overlooked, unlandscaped pocket and was overwhelmed by a familiar smell. Carvey. I recognized it before I even saw it or touched it. And that felt like a deeper kind of knowing. Then there's the day I fell and also fell in love. It began as a day of immersion. I accompanied two ecologists along with a trio of forest guards on an avifauna survey and scientific field study, following them as they counted birds, took soil temperatures, tagged the presence of giant squirrel nests, and measured the girth of trees to determine their age. I was struck especially by the old growth umbar ficus trees, with their fascinating intertwining of growth and decay, creating convolutions and splits and gaping openings that look geological. I saw these trees as the ultimate welcoming hosts, which invite all sorts of species of plants and animals to exist in symbiosis in their contorted and wounded places. And these giants guided me to see the symbioses all around me. These interrelations can be tricky, though. As I crossed the nullah at the meeting of water and moss and stone, my own foot slipped, and I caught myself with my left hand instinctually. My wrist throbbed with pain. My pants, legs, and boots were soaked. And my pride was, of course, injured too. The injury shook me up, but I was able to keep walking down the stream bed. At the end of that long day, we reached the valley. As the ecologists were taking one last soil temperature reading, I wandered a few steps away and found a circle of rock, a lava formation from deep, deep time when these mountains were first formed, and I began slowly turning around, taking in every perspective. The nullah, that golden grassy place that had sparked memories of California, the densely forested hill where I could see monkeys swinging through the trees. I took this photo as I slowly spun, flattened out here as a panorama. I felt embraced in the fullness of this landscape, even though, or maybe because I was hurt, I was feeling that grounded physical connection, and I just kept turning and turning. It was the day I fell in love with this landscape and all the life it held, which included me, though I understood I was just a guest, the least significant of beings here. And if I hadn't gotten hurt, I never would have experienced healing. The next day, my hand ballooned. We were embarking on an overnight hike across the highest ridge. As we walked through the upper canopy, the forest guards picked leaves from a bushy plant called dingala, or kukala in Marathi, known for its medicinal uses. That night, we camped on a high plateau, and after we ate, these men, who know the forest better than anyone, cooked me a salve from the leaves, and in the morning, the swelling was gone. I took one trip outside the boundaries of the Shillem Preserve to Bedse Caves, a Buddhist monastery. The caves were built in the first century BC by itinerant monks who would stay for just a season and move on so as not to form attachment to a place. There's a lesson there, as well as a connection back through history to other walkers who had moved through this landscape. The keeper, a young man named Santosh, posed this question, which resonated too with my walking practice and residency. I came to Shillem to walk, with intention and curiosity, to employ my walking body as an instrument of knowledge. Not knowledge it already possesses, except that it knows how to move, but knowledge of what is outside its boundaries. Knowledge it, meaning I, is eager and willing to discover and learn. But I am only one being, one particular body who moves in and through Shillem. And this is not my story. My brief passages weave with the continuous movements, migrations, and changes of other beings, other bodies, through this landscape and across time. An interplay of guests and hosts that I charted on my studio wall. Together, all these moving bodies tell the story of a place, past, present, and future. The Scottish writer Nan Shepherd took a lifetime to become intimate with her own living mountain. But I believe that, even as a visitor, the guest's perspective, humble, vulnerable, comfortable with not knowing, lets you, let me, experience the fullness of welcome. And that too can lead to intimacy with a place that grows and deepens quickly from ignorance to acquaintance to immersion and love. And I'll leave you with a larger question, a gift from Shillem, because it's an important question about our role as humans on this planet. How can we, in other places, behave as guests and let the places we visit and all their inhabitants, human and non human, guide us, open us, maybe wound us? How can we accept welcome, which can take us from ignorance to intimate connection with another, which, as Nan Shepherd wrote, is endless?